Hi guys, my name's Barry and welcome back to the channel. I love a good home invasion horror movie. Now, not all home invasion movies are horror movies, but what I've decided to do is give you my top 10 horror related home invasion movies of all time, I guess. There might be some that I've forgotten about, or there might have been some home invasion movies that I simply haven't seen. I haven't seen movies like Them or Inside or the original When a Stranger Calls, which is crazy because of this list, but I simply haven't seen the original When a Stranger Calls, so I can't put it on the list. But I have seen my fair share of home invasion horror movies, enough to give you a top 10. Now, my rules for a home invasion horror movie is most of the movie has to take place in the home for it to be a home invasion movie. So one movie I do love is Us, directed by Jordan Peele, but I don't consider that a home invasion movie because even though in the film the home gets invaded, it doesn't really take place fully within the home, and that's not the main premise of the movie. So in the top 10 that I've got, the main premise is home invasion, and it's mostly horror related as well. So lastly, it is my list. It's just my opinion. It may offend you, it may not. I don't know, but I don't do it to offend you. I'm just letting you know my top 10 home invasion horror movies.
Stop calling me, you
Jill, it's the police. We traced the call. It's coming from inside the house.
And at number 10 is When a Stranger Calls remake. And like I said, I haven't seen the original. I'm hearing that the original is a lot better than the remake. And when the remake came out, I enjoyed it. And a lot of people hated it. And I think it's because they saw the original. That might benefit me then, because if I had seen the original before the remake, maybe I wouldn't like the remake. But sometimes when you give it a second or third viewing, you enjoy something more or you don't like it more. I recently rewatched the remake about a year ago and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hadn't seen it for years, and I think it held up a lot better than I would imagine a lot of remakes from back in the mid-noughties. So yeah, I thought it was really good. A really solid home invasion movie.
Help me! Someone, please, help me!
And at number 9 is The Purge. Now, The Purge being a home invasion franchise is unheard of, because since the first Purge movie, the rest of the Purge franchise went on to be nationwide, and then it could end up being global at some point. But when you look back on the first Purge movie, it was a simple home invasion film. Of course, it had the Purge as an annual tradition, but it was mainly a home invasion film first and foremost. And I think that's where the franchise veered off. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because there are better Purge movies in the franchise than the first film, but the premise of the first film was so simple and amazing that I still really enjoyed the first movie. Of course, there's people out there that enjoy The Purge for different reasons now, but for me, I think a home invasion aspect was a really interesting point, and if they ever go back to home invasion for a Purge movie, I think I would enjoy it. And number 8 is Hush from Mike Flanagan. And I think if this wasn't a semi-rip-off of Mischief Night from 2013, it might have been higher on the list. I think Hush gets too much praise for being an original concept that it sometimes annoys me, because if you had seen Mischief Night from 2013, which came out 3 years before, then you would look at Hush and go, oh, this might look like a bit of a rip-off. Now, of course, it's probably a complete accident, and maybe if Mike Flanagan hasn't seen Mischief Night, Mischief Night's about a blind girl who has her home invaded on Halloween night, and similar things happen in the movie that are almost identical to Hush. But going back to Hush, Hush was done a lot better than Mischief Night. It seemed like a film that had a bigger budget, better cast, and of course an amazing director. So I think if you take a concept like Mischief Night and give it to someone like Mike Flanagan, he will give you a film like Hush.
We say we rename today Low Crime Tuesday. That's right.
And at number 7 is Hostage, starring Bruce Willis. Now, this could be the film on the list that you would consider not horror. Of course, it's a thriller, but there are horror elements to this film that I couldn't leave it off the list. There is a character in it called Mars, played by Ben Foster, and this is where I thought Ben Foster could be one of, if not the biggest actor in Hollywood. At one point it looked like he was going that way, but he's ended up not being one of those. But Ben Foster completely stole the show for me. He was the ultimate horror character in a non-horror movie, and that's the reason Hostage is on the list, because Ben Foster is amazing, and it could be a character out of any horror film, but the hostage situation in the film is fantastic as part of this home invasion idea.
Hello.
Sorry to disturb you. I'm staying next door.
Please, come in.
Wow, that's a really great set of clubs.
And at number 6 is Funny Games from 2007. Now, I haven't seen the original from 1997, but I hear it's just identical to the remake. Of course, it was directed by the same man, Michael Haneke. But the 2007 one for me is fantastic because it's a film that you feel like you should laugh in some of the scenes, but at the same time, you're on the edge of your seat. You're sweating for this family because the situation that they've been put in. It's one of those quiet home invasion movies that you just don't really know what to think of until the movie's finished. And even when the film's finished, you're still scratching your head thinking, should I enjoy that film or not?
What? I can't let you in. It's not safe.
Are you kidding me, lady? Please!
And at number 5 is Sick. This one was written by Kevin Williamson, and it's one of the newer ones on the list. Now, because it was written by Kevin Williamson, the script was slick. It was fantastic. It felt like a late 90s teen slasher movie, only a home invasion style teen slasher movie. It's one of those films that incorporate COVID into it. I'm not sure COVID needed to be part of this script, because if you take out the COVID scenario in this, it could still play out the same. There is a motive in the film, which I won't spoil. There is a motive in the film that involves COVID, which obviously you couldn't get away from. But if you remove that motive and change it with a different motive, I'm sure you could come up with something completely different. But apart from that, everything else is fantastic. Everything you want from a home invasion movie and everything you want from a film written by Kevin Williamson.
Why are you doing this to us?
Because you were home.
And at number 4 is The Strangers, and one of the reasons I'm doing this list, I recently watched The Strangers Chapter 1, depending on when you watch this video. I recently watched that and I thought to myself, there are a lot of good home invasion movies out there, apart from The Strangers Chapter 1, so spoiler alert, that's not on the list. But it got me thinking of home invasion movies. But The Strangers, the original, is fantastic. It does everything that the semi-remake couldn't do, and that is, it looks like it could be a boring film because not a lot of dialogue is in it and not a lot happens, but the build-up and the tension, the camera quality, the cinematography, everything about the original Strangers is what makes home invasion movies fantastic. They're gritty, they're unnerving, you don't know what's going to happen, and with the people who invade your home, that plays a big role in if a home invasion movie is going to be successful or not, and The Strangers has it all. And the number 3 is Don't Breathe, and I think this one's fantastic because it turns the home invasion idea and subgenre on its head, because it starts out as this home invasion, they're in there to steal things, but the person that they're stealing from also has a dark past. It's a very simple premise that someone should have thought of years ago, but they didn't, and all props to Fede Alvarez because he took that idea, turned it on its head and gave us something that's absolutely fantastic. One of the great things about Don't Breathe is the visuals in it, because it's about this person who's blind, the characters can't really speak at certain times, so when they use that and implement that into the story, sometimes it's frightening.
That's strange. What? Is this room smaller than it should be?
You're the first person to notice.
And then number 2 is Panic Room. I think Panic Room is probably David Fincher's most underrated film. When that film came out, people didn't like it because they were trying to compare it to Fight Club or Seven. These films are obviously masterpieces, but when it comes to Panic Room, they just think, nah, it's not as good as those movies, therefore it's not a good film. But when you look at this film as a home invasion film, then it's got to be up there because the acting's fantastic, the premise is fantastic, having that panic room in there, and there's something about the camera work in this movie that's top notch. The film came out in 2002, and when you watch it and see the camera movements, similar to Bad Boys 2 from 2003, just a year later, the camera movements in this film are second to none. And when you look at it 22 years later, there's hardly any movies that can rival films like that. And when you've got the camera movements that they have in Panic Room with the story of a home invasion of a film with how many levels is there? Maybe 3 or 4 levels, maybe 5 levels in this New York apartment is great. And the number one is You're Next. I don't know if that's a surprise to you guys, but You're Next is absolutely phenomenal. It's one of my favourite horror movies of all time. One of the biggest things about You're Next is it came at a complete surprise to me. The film was made in 2011, but it didn't get a theatrical release in the UK, at least until 2013. So I went to see the movie thinking, is this going to be good? I've no idea. And it blew me away. The home invasion aspect was fantastic. I loved the twist. I won't mention the twist just in case you haven't seen it, but the twist in the film was really good as well. And it really amped up the home invasion because of the stakes and the reasons for doing it and the reason for having the home invasion in the first place. But it was non-stop. A survival of the fittest. There's a character in it that is obviously the final girl, who's one of the best final girls that came out of nowhere, because when I watched the movie, I thought she was going to be this kind of shy, timid girl, and she was, but when shit hit the fan, she just stood up like Rambo, and it wasn't one of those films where it's forcing you to think, oh, this girl's just turned into Rambo. She progressively does this, and she's amazing. She's awesome. The film did come out during a time where we didn't pander to anything, so there's no excuses. If you want to make a really badass female character, look at You're Next. And if you want to make a fantastic badass home invasion horror movie, look at You're Next. So that's my top 10 home invasion horror style movies, guys. There are some movies that might be on the list that you don't agree with, and like I said, I understand that. But what are your top 10? If you don't have a top 10 and you only want to give me some examples, then leave them down below and we can get discussing. And as always, thanks a lot for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you soon.
Meeting adjourned.
What are you waiting for, huh?
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Ever played Skin the Cat?
Someone's in the back!